I want to touch on AI. So,
Sure.
on your episode on Lex's podcast, you stated, and I rewatched it last night in preparation for this. But you said,
Ah,
I don't really doubt that one day we will create a synthetic approach to cognition that rivals the biological computers in our heads. Now, you said
yep.
this before the mass adoption of GPT. I think you spoke with Lex like a year and a half ago or something like
Yeah,
that.
it was December. It was like it went the podcast went live in December, but actually I think we recorded in October of
Okay.
21.
Okay, yeah. So this was way before,
Yeah.
any kind of
This is
mainstream.
even before Stable Diffusion, right?
Yeah.
This is before,
This
yeah,
is a while
yeah.
back. So look, I suppose in terms of implications, if we are, and there's a different ways to read what you said there in the same way that you could read your tweet earlier in many different ways, right? But I suppose what do you mean by what you said? Rivaling cognition, replacing biology with a synthetic approach. Are you talking about replicating consciousness, machines becoming sentient? Where are you going with this?
So there's several different assertions stacked up into that one statement.
Yeah.
And I think each of these could be true or false on their own. Um, I personally do believe that creating that we can create non-biological substrates for cognition, for sensing and action that emerge something like what we experience as consciousness. I personally do believe that is possible and
Me too.
likely.
Me too.
Um, and there's reasons that I would argue in favor of that. I know there's some people who believe there's some, ineffable soul type thing that's infused in there. Something I'm very much uh, I'm not in that camp. I think humans are amazing and special. I think we represent something incredibly special and precious in the universe, but I don't believe that we are somehow the only thing that could do this kind of thing. And I think we should be able to, in our minds and in our hearts, hold space for both how precious we are and at the same time how much improvement there could be beyond us.
Yeah.
Right? It's possible to love all those things at the same time. So but on the specific thing about cognition, I also believe that we can actually do a lot even before this question of consciousness shows up. Carlos Perez, I think, has said some really amazing things around this, and he's got a really great perspective on this. So I'd encourage people to follow him on Twitter and sort of read some of the stuff he's written on this. He really likens the current state of LLMs, this current spate of LLMs, as artificial intuition machines.
Mm.
And they're not going through a process of reasoning in the way that we go through kind of a deductive or inductive approach. But that's not to say they can't get there or that we cannot build a mechanism starting with LLMs. I think Jim Rutt has made some comments about this as well. I think it's what LLMs are able to do right now are both notable in terms of how much like human like text synthesis and idea things they can generate without having a mind there. I think there's no mind behind an LLM. I think there's an amazing latent representation of a human knowledge graph and relationships and human concepts. And so when we do simple things like hit it with a prompt, it's able to generate some amazing things on the other side. But that's more almost a statement about the amazingness of the latent knowledge in the human corpus of text that it processed and trained on than it is a statement about some architecture of these, matrix multiplies being close to sentience or something like that. That being said, I think if you couple this then with some additional kinds of architectures, you could absolutely build something which builds a self model. So I think one of the most mind-blowingly great works I've read in this area of mind and consciousness and cognition is a body of work by a guy named Thomas Metzinger. And I might have referenced him in the Lex Fridman podcast that I did. And Thomas Metzinger has a model of cognition that is a model of consciousness. I think is it's very lovely, very elegant. And so I think we can absolutely we should at least make a good try to build some, computational silicon-based approaches to that. And I think we might get pretty close.
So you're not for Elon and Woz's pause on AI advancement. You think we should be
Actually, I was for that. I was for that, yes, because I do think, And the reason, and this might seem contradictory, like on the one hand, I think all these great things are possible. I think we should do them. At the same time, I think we're moving too fast right now. And so the relationship between these thoughts, how I hold all these different seemingly contradictory thoughts in my mind, is that with the LLM technologies that we're seeing, one could argue even with social media technologies, we reached a point of technological sophistication where the technology ran ahead of human values and societal values. And I think that's bad. I think that's incorrect, an incorrect approach. I think it is incredibly important for us to actually, as individuals, as communities, and as societies, communities of communities, I think it's important for all of us to actually get to have a grounded conversation around what it is we want to see the stuff do. And so it's sort of like we let technology just take the lead and just do whatever, because, if you hook everyone up to broadband, you give people ability to publish websites, what could go wrong? That just seems awesome and democratizing and and so we didn't see the dark side of that until you got everyone's data concentrated. You started building these data centers, you build digital twins of people. You start computationally propagandizing and manipulating people at scale. Oh, well, maybe that's not good. And so now you see regulation trying to catch up on the back end. We can't afford to do that with LLMs. We actually have to give lawmakers and have to give individuals a chance to understand what's about to happen to them, right? I think the parable would be like if you just invented a musket or a firearm, and then everyone starts making firearms at home. It's like, oh, that might be a problem. But even then, it's like a front-loading musket. How much damage could it do? And then if people invent suitcase nukes at home that everyone could build, now we really have to have a conversation, because the scale at which things can go wrong and the possible impact of that is way bigger than if someone just makes a musket and goes a little nuts, right? So I think this is the thing we're talking about with LLMs, especially if you just track how quickly the text to voice synthesis has been going, and then the real-time video mask and video filter stuff has been going. It's alarming. And so unless there is some immediate stuff coming in here to where the government says, you know what, as societal safeguards, as the guardians of social order, we actually assert our right to actually have an opinion on how this rolls out. And furthermore, as a society, as a civilization, we demand that technology be put in service of human values and not vice versa. Technology's out there and the human values just become whatever they are, right? Like that, I think, is why I support something like maybe, a pause is actually only one implementation. The ultimate goal that I support is having the population of people that be impacted by technology, having them understand what's about to happen, what it means, what it can do, and having them feel like they have a voice and agency in a societal conversation about the impact. I think that's really important.
I think it's a very optimistic idea to think that we'll have a pause, because even if we're able to make that happen in one or two countries, there'll be other countries in the world that just continue the advancement, and it gets better and better and better, and the AI starts creating AI, which creates AI, and so on and so forth. So I'm nervous and scared about where this is going when you have something which you believe could become potentially self-aware, which is hooked up to nuclear weapons and all kinds of, everything, the energy grid and everything in between, right? Are you not like me, laying in bed worrying a little bit at night, or where do you leave?
I mean, there's a lot to worry about, but at the same time, I think it is entirely possible. If you look at, for instance, consider the fact that here in the States and in the West, we've talked about how much social media here has caused political disruption, has caused polarization, all these different kinds of things. And a lot of that's Facebook, some of that's YouTube. It's all these algorithmic driven sort of rat holes. And you look at China and they're like, no Facebook. The firewall is like, no Facebook. None. Sorry. No Facebook. And so it's like, what? Wait, you could just do that? Like you could just say we don't want this influencing our people? Like we could do that? So I think with the AI thing, it's similar. I mean, China is going to have its own sort of AI sort of stuff going on that they have to contend with. Every country is going to have this kind of thing. And so if our first step is to say, hold on, at least we can say put the brakes on this until we figure out what the right deployment policy is, right? I don't know if you saw the Center for Humane Technology just released this YouTube on YouTube released a video, the AI dilemma, which is just a small parcel, a nugget of thinking from Tristan and Asa about where this stuff is going. And in there, they show like, you know, the Snapchat interaction they had, the Snapchat my AI thing.
Yeah.
And I actually just on my Snapchat, I saw that my AI thing just got turned on like this week, right? And it's like, I'm your friendly AI here to talk with you. I'm like,
the bot. Yeah.
like, okay, is Snapchat going to sign up for every possible bit of legal liability from this, right? I think a lot of the big social tech media platforms, they're used to sitting under the shadow or under the umbrella, the shade of this Communications Decency Act, Section 230, which says that you're not responsible for content from user-generated content is not the responsibility of the platform. The instant they start having their own LLMs running, generating stuff, if it's libelous, if it's slanderous, if it's causing kids to go like commit suicide, guess what? The platform is liable. And I think it's going to be about 2 seconds before the board of directors tells people to shut this down.
Yeah.
Because the lawsuits are going to start flying. I mean, there's already that guy in Europe who killed himself from his interaction with a Chai.ai chatbot.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, like, can we please just actually look at this seriously? And you may be right that if someone stops here, other people may not stop over there. But if we stop it here, or we at least put a pause and say the government does actually have a right to intercede on some of the stuff, then other countries may follow suit as well. And, you know, you might not stop it entirely, but you could actually, you know, you can change the nature of the stuff pretty quick. If we just say, oh, we don't see how this one move solves all the problems, and so therefore we don't even make the smallest move, then yes, that's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So that's kind of my view on this. I think that it is entirely possible for us to have a legal and regulatory framework around the use of people's data, their likeness, the use of all of this content that's been scraped off the internet that many people like to claim is fair use, but like maybe isn't fair use if you can go and generate art in exactly the same style as other artists, right? So there's a lot of legal gray area. There's plenty of room for regulators to come in, at least put in some temporary provisions to say, okay, these areas, you can't deploy this to kids. You cannot make this available. If you go and put this on your platform, you, the platform owner, are responsible for every token coming out of that token generator, right? They just have to put some of this stuff in place, and then people will continue research. But before they actually deploy it in a way that's potentially toxic and harmful, they at least stop and think about what they're doing, which right now, no one's thinking about what they're doing. It's a race for VC dollars to just blow up, you know, some API on top of ChatGPT. So
And most,
sorry for the rant, but that's
you're right, Pete. I mean, most VCs don't even understand what they're getting into. I mean, they just see the word AI and boom, it's money being thrown at them, right? So, I mean, often it was the case with Web3, you know, a year or two ago, right? So, history repeats itself. I haven't seen the exact video that you're referring to, but I do love the podcast from the Center of Humane Technology, and I think they were involved in the Social Dilemma documentary.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, that movie. I mean, Tristan was you know, kind of one of the main people in it, and she was very involved with Exposure Labs in making that. And that was unfortunately trying to close the barn doors after the horse had already been let out, right? It was just trying to drive awareness to people of what a simple little, you know, infinite scrolling feed does to your psychology. Now we're trying to get ahead of it a little bit. So if you go and you look for Center for Humane Technology AI Dilemma, that's the video I'm talking about. It's definitely worth a watch. And you'll see the shocking interaction, the Snapchat my AI interaction thing they talk about. It's a thing.
Hey, thanks for watching this YouTube video. If you want to see more like this, please remember to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.